Whether you love him or hate him, it's undeniable that Spider-Man is one of the most popular superheroes out there, universally recognized amongst people of all demographics, whether it be children, teenagers, or even adults. The reason why Spider-Man is so popular is due to how relatable and simple he is, at least on the surface. And of course, he's a cool spider guy that shoots webs out of his hands. That's pretty cool. But of course, if you delve deeper, Spider-Man is actually a very deep superhero, despite just coming across as a young man who dresses up in a spider costume and swings around New York. But by now, you get the point. Spider-Man is for the people and is a very good superhero. But would he be good enough to handle another hero city, specifically the Dark Knights? Batman is Spider-Man's direct opposite, a billionaire who dresses up in a bat suit, constantly fights crime during the night, and deals with a much more violent rogue gallery than Spider-Man. Fans have recently been debating on how, or if it would be even possible for Spider-Man clean up Gotham, as the title suggests. But before we actually get into the video, we need to set up the terms and conditions for this matchup. To start, we'll be using Earth 616 Spider-Man and putting him against Batman's Prime Earth gallery. Now, of course, Batman has faced many villains over the years, so we'll be taking the 6 of the most iconic Batman villains there's ever been, and they're Penguin, Bane, Clayface, Scarecrow, Riddler, and the Joker. Spider-Man will be given 2 weeks to defeat all these villains that he'll have no assistance from any of the superheroes or Batman's camp, specifically Alfred. He won't have any access to any of Wayne Tech. He'll be operating on his crusade completely on his own. At most, we can grant him the most surface-level info on all these villains that the public and media have access to. Unlike insider info that Batman would have due to spending decades fighting against these villains and learning how they operate, all Spider-Man has at his disposal is enough web fluid to last him for a month. His suit, brains, and a place to rest and recover in between with the bare essentials. If Spider-Man has to resort to killing any of Batman's enemies, it will be considered a loss. Obviously, if Spider-Man needs more than 2 weeks to defeat Batman's rogue gallery, then it'll also be considered a loss. With all that being said, let's get into the video. And we're starting off with the Penguin. But before that, if you enjoy this type of content, subscribe. Now, despite Penguin being seen as a joke amongst certain comic book fans, he's actually not to be underestimated. The only reason as to why he seems like an absolute FOD character is because he's going up against Batman of all heroes, who is a genius in his own right, and constantly has backup plans upon backup plans for villains like the Penguin. Penguin is an outright mobster with access to large amounts of resources and henchmen, and is the owner of the Iceberg Lounge. He's also very intelligent, as he's capable of playing multiple games of chess at a time, can train pigeons to not only steal jewelry, but actually attack and maim others, can keep track of how many bullets are being fired as well as the specific model of gun during a fight, and is so crashed that he's capable of indirectly manipulating Batman into pursuing a man that attempted to bait Penguin into believing that Two-Face was attacking his men. He also has access to gadgets in the form of different umbrellas. He has an umbrella that is tipped with enough poison to kill a man in 10 seconds. An umbrella with a built-in taser that's powerful enough to knock out Batman umbrella that fires egg bombs with a blast radius so large it would completely engulf you. And an umbrella that's straight up an AK-47. Penguin has access to all of this. And you also have the honor of facing a man
who is a black belt and consistently weigh trains. But you only get to face him after you make it through the hundreds of Penguin goons who vary in strength and are all armed. So, is Spider-Man going to be able to clear Penguin? Well, actually, yes. Penguin probably is actually one of the easiest of Batman's road gallery that Spider-Man has to handle, and he can honestly do it in less than a night. If it's a contest of strength, Spider-Man takes it with negative difficulty. He's capable of casually pulling a truck with one hand to knock out a villain, and does this not only in the middle of combat, but at such inhuman speed that by the time the villain turns his head over his shoulder, it's already lights out. Of course, it will take strategy and planning for Spider-Man to be able to get to the Penguin, as he has to get through all of his guards, since going there gun blazing would be a stupid move. But Spider-Man doesn't need to waste time strategizing. He can literally do it on the fly. Spider-Man is capable of doing multiple mathematical equations on the fly, specifically being able to calculate the weight, distribution, and relationship of load-bearing walls in a house and come up with the exact calculation necessary to save Harry Osborn from being burnt to a crisp by Molten Man in just a matter of seconds. Coming up with a strategy to successfully get past or just outright do crowd control on all of Penguin's goons will be child's play for Spider-Man, as he could simply make a gadget to deal with large groups of fighters. Most specifically, the web bomb that Insomniac Spider-Man has access to. When thrown at a specific area, it releases a large wave of webbing that immediately binds and sticks nearby enemies. Yes, Insomniac Spider-Man and Earth 616 Spider-Man aren't the same. Earth 616 Spider-Man is just way smarter than Insomniac Spider-Man due to the plea of feats he has access to. Or at worst, you can say they're equal intelligence. Regardless, Spider-Man should honestly no-diff Penguin and his mob and have him locked up in Blackgate Prison before the sun has even risen. Up we have Spider-Man ver Bane, one of Batman's physically strongest enemies who was able to beat him in combat and outright break the Bat when he was first introduced. Granted, Batman was weakened and heavily tired. And Bane does use a drug known as Venom to enhance his physical stats, and with Venom, not that Venom, he's capable of stopping the bite of a shark and tearing it by the jaw, killing 30 men in one go. Swing through a 30 knots current that was so strong it would have caused any normal human to wash up in Iceland. Break out of concrete restraints and casually lift 1,500 pounds over his head, and by slamming the weights, he can crack the ground itself. Even crazier, Bane is so fast that he can outright dodge bullets and have even faster characters believe he's on Venom due to how fast he is. But in actuality, he wasn't. He was just in base. His base stats are that impressive. But regardless, Bane still has nothing on Spider-Man, who can use his brute strength to lift a T-90 tank in the middle of combat. And he does this with ease, even compared to Bane's max of 15 tons. He is also more faster and agile than Bane due to obviously having a lighter body, being able to casually dodge bullet fire from a submachine gun, can bounce on a flagpole with a singular finger, and can travel across the entirety of New York in about 9 minutes. That Spider-Man is just far more smarter than Bane. Spider-Man would have had a harder time if Bane used Venom, but not by a lot. Even Spider-Man's lesser-known or worse lifting and strength feats absolutely MO Bane's best feats. Bane is physically superior to Batman, which is impressive. But you also need to remember that Batman is a peak human, whereas Spider-Man is absolutely a superhuman. Spider-Man defeats Bane with low difficulty, rounds up all of his goons, and throws him into a nice padded cell that neighbors Penguin. I could honestly see him beating both Bane and Penguin in a single night from start to finish, aka the sunrise. Spider-Man versus Clayface is a bit more difficult. Clayface is actually very slept on. He's strong enough to restrain both Batman and Nightwing, knock back Supergirl, and most notably has the power to shift into any body he desires. Clayface can manipulate his mass expertly and can grow in size effectively to get stronger. With his brute force alone, he gave Wonder Woman an actual challenge who is a lot more stronger than Spider-Man. Though this doesn't mean Clayface scales above Spider-Man or is physically stronger than him. Diana was caught off guard and very surprised at Clayface's appearance and attacks. And when she was able to get a grip, she successfully beat him. However, you also need to realize that Spider-Man has dealt with even tougher opponents than Clayface, like Hydraman or Sandman, with Sandman being able to lift 85 tons and give Hulk of all heroes trouble. Though, like Sandman, Clayface also has a weakness, that being water, cause he's made of clay-like substances, which is like mud. Carlo is vulnerable to water and water-based substances. Having enough of said substances poured into his body starts breaking down its bonding ability and making Clayface weaker. In a straight-up encounter, Clayface would have Spider-Man by surprise and get a few hits in, maybe even being able to bind him. But I haven't even mentioned that Spider-Man's spider sense is at its peak and refined due to maturity, which is how Spider-Man is able to avoid a multitude of attacks and surprise attacks from villains that would have straight-up put him in the ground ages ago. Spider-Man would initially be surprised by Clayface and would crack a few jokes comparing him to Sandman. And this would then lead Spider-Man to use a mixture of fluid and crystallized intelligence to come up with a solution to defeat Clayface, leading him to the nearest water hydrant and absolutely soaking him before moving in to finish the job. Spider-Man only takes longer to defeat Clayface if he's in hiding and has to find him. But it's Gotham and criminals just don't give up. So, I doubt it would take long for Spider-Man to find him. He'd probably come across Clayface shape-shifted as somebody else and would get surprised with a punch when he changes his form, leading to a fight and Spider-Man figure out the solution. And as I mentioned above, so it would take Spider-Man a bit longer to defeat Clayface, but this is only due to how tricky of an opponent he is compared to the others on this list. Clayface is an impulsive villain who doesn't pay much attention in battle, which Spider-Man would take the advantage of considering he's way smarter. Spider-Man vs. Scarecrow is where the battle begins to shift from no to low difficulty to Spider-Man actually having to struggle. Dr. Crane is by no means a villain that can be underestimated. He's capable of creating a hypnotic drug that is so mentally scarring it can turn normal people into serial killers. Makes steroids that make him a physical match for Batman. Created a VR helmet that traps the user in a permanent nightmare and brainwashes them to serve him. Most notably, his fear gas. Crane's fear gas amplifies a person's fears and causes them to have hallucinations of said fears, making even the strongest and toughest opponents mentally crumble and submit to Crane. I find it hard to believe that Spider-Man would allow himself to get hit by fear gas, especially due to his spider senses and fast reactions. But for the sake of the video, let's say Spider-Man pulls up on Scarecrow and gets hit with a wave of fear gas to his face. Is it raps for Spider-Man? Well, actually, no. It's very debatable if the fear gas would even do anything to Spider-Man, as he's consistently shown to have resistance to drugs and gases that should have either killed him or leave him paralyzed. There's also the fact that Spider-Man is very mentally strong. One of the popular Spider-Man issues was the Superior Spider-Man run, where it involves Dr. Octopus switching bodies with Peter Parker, which was initially done in an attempt to checkmate him once and for all. However, after seeing all of Peter's memories and the good that Spider-Man does, he decided to use Peter's body to become more of a superior Spider-Man and even went as far as to build a device that permanently erased Peter Parker's mind out of existence. However, it failed as Peter was able to get back in his body after Dr. Octopus realized how much the city needed Spider-Man. And ever since, Peter made contingency plans in the event that his mind was attacked again. In fact, Spider-Man has for his own versions of Scarecrow in his universe and has come out on top by just powering through his own fears and insecurities and being unaffected by the gas. So, Spider-Man would initially be caught off guard and surprised if he was hit by the fear gas, but ultimately he would be able to prevail with low to arguably mid difficulty. Spider-Man vs. Riddler is a turning point of matchups against Batman's Rogue Gallery, as Riddler is going to give Spider-Man a challenge, not physically, but intellectually and mentally. Their intelligence is also catered towards different areas entirely. Spider-Man's intelligence is more suited for innovation and science, whereas Riddler's intelligence is more suited for, well, riddles and detective work, and uses his intelligence to create puzzles and traps that Batman has a limited amount of time to solve, or else a lot of people get hurt. Riddler is so intelligent that he's able to actually stomp and confuse Tim Drake's brain. Mind you, Tim Drake is not only the smartest Robin, but is only surpassed by Batman in the detective world. He can also straight up deduce Batman's identity after having a single conversation with him. But the reason he doesn't out his identity is because Riddler is so obsessed with proving he is intellectually superior than Batman. But getting back to the matchup, assuming the scenario in which Spider-Man faces off against Riddler is a situation that involves solving riddles to save civilians and in turn figure out where the Riddler is hiding, Peter would struggle. He's never faced a villain who's so obsessed with riddles. But I honestly don't think it would take longer than a day. Even if riddles aren't Spider-Man's forte, he is exceptionally gifted in intelligence. To solve Riddler's puzzles, you would need to have very quick thinking and excellent pattern recognition, which Spider-Man is no stranger to. Spider-Man has been able to do the right amount of math in his head to find the correct trajectory to fall from orbit into Paris while it's free-falling from space. Uses pattern recognition to figure out how to stop an alien invasion, something that neither Iron Man or the Guardians of the Galaxy could do. And as a teenager, he was able to beat Dr. Octopus with 15 minutes of prep time and a $5 chemistry set. The same Dr. Octopus who was able to outsmart Peter Parker in debt. Spider-Man would struggle with clearing Riddler's contraptions and puzzles due to the complexity of them as well as being new to such a villain, but he would ultimately succeed with mid-difficulty. Last but not least, we have Spider-Man vs. the Joker. Spider-Man has been able to breeze through Batman's Rogue Gallery and has only really had to try against the Riddler due to his genius intellect, but can he take care of Joker? A lot of fans believe that Joker is where Spider-Man stops, as Joker would just outright traumatize Spider-Man or mentally break him, who's usually so lighthearted and full of energy, whereas Joker is a psychotic clown who would stop at nothing to break down Spider-Man. And he probably would find it kind of hilarious that Spider-Man doesn't kill as well, just like Batman. Now, I'll break this down in a simple way that you can understand because it's not as simple as it seems. We've already seen how Joker handles opponents that like to crack jokes, most notably Terry McGinnis, the future Batman from Batman Beyond. And older Bruce acts as Terry's mentor and gives him advice on dealing with the Joker, which is to get in his head, which messes with Joker. Simply put, nothing is more terrifying than a peaceful man who embraces war. On the topic of whether or not Joker could psychologically break Spider-Man again, I heavily doubt it. Not only for the aforementioned reasons that were brought up during Spider-Man vs. Scarecrow, but like Batman, Spider-Man is insanely tough, both physically and mentally. Joker would be Spider-Man's toughest opponent yet, not due to his intellect or what he has to offer to battle, but Spider-Man would have to decide which suit he needs to don when facing off against the Clown Prince of Crime, the classic red or blue or the vengeful black suit, which is worn when a line needs to be crossed. But overall, I do believe that Spider-Man could clean up Gotham if put up against the specific villains I have listed with mid-difficulty. He'd be able to do so in less than a week. And the hardest opponent could either be Riddler due to his intellect and adoration for puzzles, or Joker, as he would cause Spider-Man to struggle with his immorality. But if it's a straight-up fight, Spider-Man's quips will irritate Joker so much that he'll be off his game. If the Rogues Gallery was larger and included other adversaries like Mr. Freeze, Ra's al Ghul, or even Deathstroke, the difficulty would increase from mid to high difficulty. It would take a bit longer, but I'm sure that Spider-Man's overwhelming physicality, spider sense, and genius intellect would carry him to victory. The heroic Webzinger can take a massive rest after a few days of work. Though I do wonder how would Batman handle the Marvel's Universe's New York as well as Spider-Man's adversaries. Well, we might find out soon.